Welcome to Latino Talk TV. I'm your host, Ben Mendez, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Mr. Chris Ochoa. Thank you for joining us, Chris.
Thank you for having me, Ben.
And we have two special guests today. We have a husband and wife combo. We have Abel and Diana Davila, former board member of HISD and former board member of HCC. In a minute, we're going to get to them. First, we're going to talk about current events. Now, I'll tell you what, I don't know about you, but I'm a big Texan fan.
Oh, absolutely, no doubt.
And wouldn't you all agree it was a great game?
Yes,
It was. We won.
Especially when you win.
Well, we've won 2 in a row. I don't know when the last time was when we could say that.
I'm going to tell you this, in front of, Peyton Manning being the guru quarterback that he is, surviving all odds with the whole neck injury, being able to get that W really felt good.
Well, I will tell you also, there's a battle for second string quarterback.
Oh, yes, yes.
And I would hate to see Case Keenum lose that position as a backup. Now, you know better than I do, there's a lot of people that are saying that he's not worth it. He's not worth holding on to. And perhaps we might see Savage as our second quarterback.
Yeah, I have to say, Ben, I liked Keenum, hometown boy, U of H, but ultimately it looked like Tom Savage was better than he was. I mean, he scored
he
that
did a good job.
and
Yeah, he did a good job at the end. Yeah. What can you say?
We'll see.
Go Cougars.
That's right. Cougars.
Let's talk about something else that recently happened. As you know, Michael Brown was buried today.
Yes, he was.
Yes, and as you know, there was a lot of people watching this, and you can only imagine how many people saw it on TV and actually were there as spectators.
Yeah, President Obama sent about 3 aides out there from his high-ranking officials to go and take a look at the funeral and just express his condolences.
Well, the race relations, I will tell you, in Houston, they're not very good. Anything that happened in St. Louis, Missouri, or Ferguson, Missouri, can happen here. All it takes is one event, whether it be a police shooting or some other type of event, just like we had in Moody Park.
Moody Park. Mm-hmm.
We had, what was his name?
Yeah, it's the.
I forget his name too.
Tony.
No, it's
Yes.
We had the gentleman that was killed by the police
police officer and thrown in the bayou.
and thrown in the
I
bayou.
heard about that. And it was
Yes.
And then the
was a little young
Austin
man.
walkouts.
Yes, and so there's a lot of things that could happen, and I will tell you, I'm really worried about this. Race relations here in Houston are not that great, and this city can explode at any time. Mm-hmm. And one council member, Bradford, as a matter of fact, even mentioned this in the Houston Chronicle. So, what are your thoughts on that?
What did he mention? I didn't read it.
That Houston could very well have something similar.
Ben, I think that you're right on. I mean, that's something that could definitely happen. It's important for all communities to integrate with one another and do things that are positive, that will impact the community positively. And I think ultimately what tends to happen, and pulling from my experience just being on the University of Texas campus, a lot of times people will flock to people that look just like them. And so you start formulating this sense of comfortability, but as well, you're not getting that outside influence from different cultures. So, a lot of it is just fear, and it needs to change, and there's got to be ways that we can.
And I just remembered the name of the gentleman, Jose Campos.
Ah.
And the riots in Moody Park because of this killing, and actually they threw him in the bayou.
They did.
They beat him up and threw him in the bayou. And this was a veteran from the military. Mm-hmm. And so unfortunately, he was thrown with his hands handcuffed behind him. And of course, he couldn't swim. And it led to the riots at Moody Park. Now, what are your thoughts on this whole incident?
Ladies first.
You're gonna let me go first. It's always a sad day when things like this happen, and you're right. I think we're all in a reactive mode right away when things happened, and so especially when it happens to minorities, we always want to react in a way sometimes that other people may not understand. But a lot of the times, we go through it so much when we're growing up in our neighborhoods. We're discriminated so much when we're growing up, whether it's in your neighborhood, whether it was at the grocery store, or whether it was when you were going to school, that when things like this happen, you can't help but react in a violent way sometimes. And that's unfortunate because, we should have other ways to react. And actually, matter of fact, we shouldn't even have to react this way. Everyone is human. Everyone's a citizen of this country. Everyone should be treated equally. Everyone should be seen equally. But unfortunately, we're not in that stage here in America yet where we can be seen equally. I mean, we all sign up to go to the military, whether you're black, brown, Hispanic, Asian, we all fight for this country so that we should all be standing together at this country, and we should all be seen equally the same way we are when we're all fighting in the front lines. And so I think as soon as we can all start seeing that, not just the minorities, but everyone here in America can start seeing us as an equal, then I think we can actually start progressing, and we could actually start talking about equality and everything else. I mean, even being a woman, there's an equality among us, and you can be white and have inequality among an environment. So, we're still, decades back, unfortunately, I think, where we actually want to be in this country.
Well, I think Houston's a vibrant city, and I think there's a lot of hope in Houston. I want to focus on the hope in Houston. I think we have leaders throughout the community that can stand up and become leaders and working together and creating the programs that are needed in this country and needed in this city. I think Houston has elected the first gay mayor, has elected a black mayor. Now it's time for a Hispanic mayor to show that we truly believe in diversity. I told my son one day, I said, maybe it'll be till you're 21 or 22 before I see the first mayor. I'm not sure. I hope to see one before I die. And I hope to see the first president.
Abe will die without running for mayor.
No, I'm not running for mayor.
Unless
But-
it's your son.
I would die like Junior. but I'm one of those that believes that Houston has a possibility to be a diverse city where we can all work together. And whether it's the business community, whether it's a civic community, whether it's the HISD level, the community college, I think what happens is that we're so focused as Americans thinking that I have to blame someone else. I have to blame the brown kid, I have to blame the black kid, I have to blame the white kid if I'm brown. And I think the blame game needs to stop. I think what needs to happen is we're all Americans in this country, and we all need to start working together, because if we're not Americans together, then somebody's going to come in and divide us as Americans.
Good point. Let's talk about another issue. Just recently, there's been a lot of talk about the races going on. We have a race for governor that's heating up with Wendy Davis and Mr. Abbott, and of course the lieutenant governor's race. What are your thoughts on the races that are going on?
Well, I had the opportunity to attend the Texas Democratic Convention.
That's right.
And my wife,
your wife sang for the Democratic Party.
Second time they had it.
By the way, I give her lessons every Tuesday.
I will tell you this, man. Wendy Davis, she has a way about her words and her demeanor, the way she presents herself. There's this authenticity about her. And same thing with Leticia Van de Poot. I think I said her last name right. But it's interesting because the Democratic Party really does a good job in highlighting their lives. There's the political life, obviously, but ultimately, when you come down to it, it's about the person. And ultimately, in a voter's mind, in my opinion, I feel it's about who can the voter resonate with and relate with most. And so Leticia had a bit where she was cooking at home, and she had all of her family there, and she laid down the hammer and cut the turkey like with ferocity, and just kind of saying, this is the leadership I'm going to take in the state of Texas. I'm going to, lead with a fierceness. And when Wendy came on, she just had everybody, just all eyes on her. So in terms of the election, Greg Abbott, I'm not sure what the funding has been, but I think between the two, Wendy has raised her opponent, I believe.
Well, I disagree with you on that. I think that Abbott has so much money, it's going to be hard to catch up to him financially. But I will tell you also that, Wendy, she has an uphill battle. I mean, Abbott obviously has been in office for a long time, and the money people know him. So she has an uphill battle. I'm a Democrat all the way. I support Wendy all the way. But I will tell you, it's going to be very difficult.
It is.
Would you agree?
Absolutely.
I believe it's going to be difficult. I mean, these are two very passionate women. These are two women that want to make a difference here in Texas, and I applaud them for stepping out there and doing this for us Texans. And but you're right. I agree with you. I think it's a hard battle to get there. It's not going to be easy in November when it comes down to it. But I wish them the best of luck for both of them, because I think they're two very strong candidates, and I think they're two very strong women. I have to say that.
Well, I believe what you said, Ben. I think the Democratic Party hasn't enthused enough minorities to come out and vote. I think there's no enthusiasm in the streets. While in the political circles, there's a lot of enthusiasm and there's a lot of let's go and try to conquer Texas. But I think the Republican Party is a strong party. The Republican Party comes out and vote. And there's no connection between the leaders that are running for governor and the Hispanic or Black community to say, I want to go out and vote for these people. So I think you're right on target. I think Wendy Davis is going to have a tough battle. I actually predict that Abbott will win.
The other thing is I don't like about politics is the negative ads.
Absolutely.
And Wendy Davis says, as far as I know, she's the one that's been funding those negative ads. And it'd be interesting to see what Abbott comes out with his negative, because usually when one goes negative, the other one's going to go negative. And unfortunately, that's the bad side of the politics.
Yeah, I saw that ad on social media, and it has a very dark overtone to it. The ad talks about how a woman was in her home and she ended up being burglarized and being raped, and something about Greg Abbott's influence allowing the case not to necessarily bring it to full justice. And ultimately, I think you're right on, Ben. You have to lead with what you're going to do, what your platform is, and as soon as you start going negative, then you're looking for a bloodbath, really.
And this is a former council member, by the way.
He understands.
He understands the politics behind the scenes.
It's dirty in a small town, too.
And I will also tell you that the Democratic Party has done a great job in trying to motivate people and getting them registered to vote. But will it be enough to carry Wendy? I don't know. I really don't know. Now, we've seen movements before, voter registration drives. I remember back when Southwest voter registration drives used to happen all the time.
Yep.
And so even though there are some small groups that are doing voter registration, I don't see it as influential as I did in the past.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, and even though we did register a lot of people back then, a lot of them didn't vote. So it's one thing to register, it's totally different when you get them not to vote.
Well, let me ask you this, Ben. What do you think about the whole scenario with Governor Rick Perry and how that's going to play into the November election?
You know what? And that was going to be my follow-up topic, but I'm glad you brought it up. I have it right here.
Oh, yeah.
Perry was indicted by a district attorney that's a Democrat from Travis County. Obviously, there's some bad blood there because our governor asked her to resign when she was caught DWI, right?
Yes.
Now,
Lindbergh.
she obviously did not resign, and Perry threatened to take away money from her
Public
integrity group. Yeah, and I don't remember the exact dollar amount, but whatever the case, this smells like politics to me.
Oh yes, definitely.
I mean, I agree with you. I think your question would, I think the Republican Party is going to be motivated because the Republican Party is going to see it more as a Democrats attacking Republicans.
Yes.
And so you're going to have the Republican grassroots, the Tea Party people, the religious people saying, this governor has been good for Texas, the economy is great. And so you're attacking him based on somebody that's been drinking and driving and supposed to be a kind of a influential person and a role model for people. While either one, I agree with you that it's just a political, let's get at each other. When it should have been, it's like let the governor retire and move on. But politics is politics. You're talking about dirty campaigns. Well, hell, this is the best dirty campaign ever. Let's see who gets who. And so I mean, and by experience too. I mean, it happens. You make someone mad and you decide you want to fire someone. They don't get fired. Well, when they're in charge, they're going to get back at you. And so you see the case there that he wanted her removed. I don't know whether he did something bad or didn't do anything bad. I wasn't there. I haven't read the documents, but I think the Republican Party is going to be motivated, and I think that's what's lacking in the Democratic Party. There's nothing to say. When Obama ran, everybody was pumped up. First African American, let's go out and vote. Whether you're Hispanic, young people in college, there's no Hispanic running that you can say she's going to be the governor or he's going to be the governor. Right. While Leticia's running, I mean, I don't think she's being the second in command. It's not as exciting as being the top notch and saying, "Hey, look, we're leaders too. Put us on the top. We don't need to be second tier anymore. We're Americans and we want to be in the forefront."
not to regress, but I thought it was kind of interesting that Abbott's campaigns have his mother-in-law, who's Latino, by the way. She's front and center in that commercial.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on her?
I mean, I think if the Republican Party would use more Hispanics and open their arms to the Hispanic community, I think there would be more of a connection. A big percentage of Hispanics voted for George Bush for president and for governor and voted for Rick Perry. So I think the value systems and are closer related to the Republican Party. Where the Republican Party lacks is the immigration issue and the social issues. If they would connect to the Hispanic community, believing that Hispanics are American first, not Hispanic first, then they would probably open their arms a little bit more.
On the women issue, now because we have two women at the top of the ballot, how does it affect the women's vote?
Women are going to come out and vote for women. I mean, I'm just going to be honest with you. We tend to favor our own. I mean, we've never found ourselves in that situation. I mean, Ann Richards was there, granted, but it's been a long time since we had a woman governor there in that seat, and we'd like to see a woman there. Now, granted, I liked Rick Perry. You know, Republican or not, you know, I'm a Democrat, but I liked Rick Perry. I think he did a great job, and I think I would agree with you that I think this is some form of a backlash. Someone liking Rick Perry, and I think he did a good job. While other countries were foreclosing homes and going through a bad economy, Texas was still thriving. We weren't at our top, but we weren't at the bottom either.
Okay,
So.
woman, Rick Perry. Woman, Rick Perry.
I just had to. I didn't. Abel kind of took up the spotlight on that one, so I wanted to get my point across
which,
of that.
Which way are you going?
I would go with Wendy Davis. I would support Wendy Davis. I think I think she has a good platform, and I think she'd make a great governor for Texas.
Okay, let me switch here. Rick Perry, Hillary. Rick Perry.
No, I don't know. That's a tricky one because I've seen
Or
the
Jeb
track
Bush.
record. Well, I've seen the track record of Rick Perry. I know what he can do. I'm a little skeptical, though, if he can do the same thing he did at a national level that he did here at this level. But I've seen Hillary Clinton, and I think I've seen what she can do at the national level, too. So I'm a little torn apart between both of them.
It'd be interesting to see what happens if he forgets. When remember the debate
There's
said,
5
I
things
know.
I'm going to do for this country. Education.
"What are they?"
Immigration. What are the
But the
other
other 3, that
Well,
was a tough one for him.
I'll tell you what, he's going to have to do some serious politicking.
He's an Aggie, isn't he?
Yeah,
Is he an Aggie?
Is he an Aggie?
He is.
Yeah, he's an Aggie.
Okay, well,
A&M's still a good school.
That's right.
You can't fault him.
No. That's one of the schools our son's considering, so of course not.
so we're going to take a little break, and when we come back, we're going to talk to Diana Davila, the person, okay, not the former HISD board member, and Abel Davila, husband and wife combo. But first, let me congratulate the Pearland Little League for making it to the World Series. Now, I tell you what, great things for that group.
Yep.
2 times they went to the World Series, back to back. I mean, what can you say about the coaching and the kids
Parents
and
as
parents?
well,
Yeah, everybody involved. So hats off to them. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Welcome back to Latino Talk TV. We're having way too much fun over here. We have the husband and wife combo. We have Diana and Abel Davila. Notice I said Diana first. Diana and
Thank you.
Abel Davila. Now, let's talk about your upbringing. I know both of y'all from Second Ward. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So where did you go to school? Elementary, junior high, high school, and college?
I actually grew up more closer to Magnolia.
Okay.
My parents moved around a lot. They were immigrants to this country like many other families. My dad's from Guadalajara, Jalisco, and my mom's from Monterrey, or she was born in Durango, and that's where they met. I was born in Monterrey, Mexico, and then they came to this country. I wasn't even 1 year old when I arrived here. So our upbringing was in Magnolia, and then from Magnolia we moved closer to Pecan Park. And so I ended up going to school actually closer. I went to Park Place Elementary, and I went to Dede Middle School, and then I graduated from Millview High School. So,
The buff
That's
is
right.
in the house.
I was in
Exhausted.
Buffalo. I know, get some Mustang.
And then you went to college where?
I started off at HEC Southeast College, that's right. I wasn't the brightest child in the classroom, and I knew I wanted to get an education. One of the main focuses in our household was you got to go to school, you got to go to school. I remember my father telling us, I can't give you a car, I can't give you money, but I can give you the opportunity to go to college, and you can stay here as long as you want, finish your degree, and go to college. And
So you graduated at HEC?
I didn't get my associate's degree at HEC. I took all my basic courses, and
Okay.
then I moved on to the University of Houston, where I did get my bachelor's degree, and I became a bilingual teacher.
Oh, okay.
I always wanted to go back. I mean, when I was going through school, it was English only, ESL, ESL, ESL.
Central?
Yes.
Okay, Central.
And so I found myself struggling through middle school and high school with my English because my grammar never caught up.
Okay.
And so I told myself this will never happen again to any other child. If I can make a difference, I'm going to make a difference in the classroom. And that was the reason I got my bilingual degree.
And yourself?
And then I got a master's
you got your
degree.
master's
I have a
too?
master's degree. Yes, I always forget I have a master's degree.
From U of H?
I got it from U of H, but this was
Okay.
U of H Clear Lake.
Or was it one of those online?
No online.
Went to
Believe me. I was pregnant with my second child
Okay.
when I was going through my master's degree at U of H Clear Lake. So I got my master's degree in education also. I thought I wanted to be a principal.
Okay. And
Well,
yourself?
exactly like my wife. My parents were immigrants to this country. They were both from Monterrey. One from Monterrey, one from Concha de Oro. We from a family of 10. I always tell people we're all biblical names. I don't have a brother named Cain, but I have a brother named Moses, Saul, Paul. and we have a big family. We come from a big family. We lived in a 2-bedroom home right around here, 4 blocks from here. My mom still lives there.
So you went to elementary
I
where?
went to elementary right around here at Rusk Elementary.
Rusk, and then
I went to,
junior high?
and then my mom decided, it was during that conflict time where either I would end up going to E.O. Smith, and so my mom was like, no, you're not going to that school. So she started working, and she sent us to Blessed Sacrament for junior high.
Okay.
And then I went to Milby for a semester, and then I went to Austin for a semester. And so I used to
traitor.
break. Yeah, no. What happened was I used to break dance a lot. And so they picked me up to dance. And so they asked me, do you want to dance? And I said, well, I'll try it. I don't know what dance is about. I thought I was going to break dance. Well, no, it was ballet, jazz, tap. And so I ended up going to HSPVA and graduated my last 3 years at HSPVA right after the walkout at Austin High School because we didn't have books and we didn't have equipment to do any experiments or anything. So we were just using water and so forth. After we walked out of there, I went to HSPVA and graduated from HSPVA. Had a chance to go to New York City, dance there. I went to TSU. First time we started off at ACC Southeast, finished my associate's degree. Went to TSU Pharmacy School, and just currently, about 4 years ago, finished my PhD at Sam Houston.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Well, good deal. So you're, what is it, a cougar? What is Sam Houston?
Bearcat.
Bearcat.
Bearcats.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're a
So
Bearcat.
I'm wearing a little bit of orange.
Hey, represent.
So let's talk a little bit about politics, okay? So obviously politics didn't just happen overnight. I mean, you kind of were interested in politics from very young. I remember back in, what year was it, when you were at HEC? Because I
Wow,
was at
91,
Yeah,
92?
90s,
Yeah.
91, yeah.
Yeah, so you guys were politically active back in the day. And I say back in the day, it seems like a long time, 18, what,
20 years ago.
Yeah, it seems so. We're getting gray hair.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
We used to be like,
You're not supposed to date yourself.
I know
okay?
That's okay. That's okay.
And by the way, they're a lot older than I am.
We'll take it. We'll take it. We have
by a day.
When I was in elementary, they were at HCC.
That's right. You were very active already.
That's correct. I was very active in politics back then. But I will tell you that from very young age, you guys were spearheading all kinds of initiatives. So I knew you all were leaders in the community, and your involvement was only going to grow. And so it was actually good to see that you actually ran for HISD. Did you run for another position before that?
I did not.
Okay, so you won the first time out of the block?
I did, and I had 4 other candidates plus myself. That made it 5.
Okay.
And
60%.
Yes, and I was 6 months, 7 months pregnant.
Oh, wow.
Throughout the whole, yeah. So 3 months into this in March, I had a baby. I had my little girl.
So if you're pregnant and you want to run
The
for
best time.
office, you know what?
Voters appeal to that.
Hey, I don't want to see Abel wearing.
I don't think I can get pregnant.
But I tell people that was my best workout. I said it kept me in shape, so my daughter came in healthy. We were both very healthy. So a week or two after, I think it was a month, it was a couple of weeks after that, I was at a school closure at Gregory Lincoln and a lot of other controversy. And I think, so
She was
no
ready.
honeymoon.
She was ready.
I don't even know. How old were you when you first became council member?
23.
23.
Wow.
And you won the first time
First
around?
time there was
Congratulations.
2 other candidates, and I got 56% of the vote.
Well, I can tell you why he won. He won because of his wife. Let me tell you, she's a go-getter.
She is a
She's a
go-getter.
go-getter.
She was out there campaigning with me,
Yeah.
and we knocked on about 2,000 doors.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's the way we brought out the vote. Just raised awareness.
I believe it. I believe it.
Yeah.
It's like
So,
grassroots.
so let's talk about your political endeavors. So you started when?
Well, I never saw myself getting into politics. I just saw myself helping people. I mean, we started an organization called YOH, Youth of Houston, here in Second Ward, where we would go to seniors' homes. We were only 15, 16, and we would cut their yards for free. And my mom would get mad because we would break her lawnmower every time we were cutting people's house.
Grass that was up to our
for free,
knees.
up to our knees. And then we had to replace it. And it's like we had money. My dad was a mechanic. My mom was just working for a doctor. But we did it because we thought it was the right thing to do. And of course, there was a lot of racism. I remember driving in the car, and my dad would get stopped, be called wetback, be called all these things. And I'm like, how are you a wetback? I'm an American citizen. How could you be a wetback? And so I think those things and those experiences got us involved in politics. I mean, I ran for precinct judge at 18, won here at Second Ward. Then I got elected when I was 25 at ACC. But at first, I started with Felix Fraga. I helped Felix get elected to HISD. And we ran his campaign. And then I ran his city council campaign. We started his campaign right here off of my mom's home. We didn't have a campaign headquarters. He didn't have the money. He had 2 opponents that were well funded, supported by the mayor, by all these state reps. And we still won. We won because every night we would go out there and walk, and we knew it was the right thing. We knew he was the right candidate for the district because we knew his heart was in the right place. He didn't care about being promoted or becoming the next mayor or the next Congress member. What he cared about was making sure the community was being helped and the neighborhoods are being clean. And so he cared about the people, and I think that's the most important thing about getting involved. It's not so much the political and the fame and the title, because you don't need a title to get involved. What you need to do is get involved because it's the right thing to do.
So how many years were you at HCC?
I was at ACC for 3 years and we actually became the student government. I became the student government president. She was my vice
How long
president.
were you at HEC as
the board member.
Board
Wow, the
member?
board member. I was there 12 years. Actually, I served 2 terms, 2 long terms. For volunteer.
Oh, that's how you got all the gray hair.
Long term.
For
I know exactly what it means.
I was there 12 years, and people don't see the sacrifice, because I tell people all the time, if I would have devoted my time to working part-time, I think I would have lost over $1 million of just volunteering, because as a pharmacist, you get paid well. So I calculated, okay, if I would have been working part-time and giving my 20 hours to work instead of volunteering, then I would have made pretty good money. But I decided that giving back is more important, because at the end of the day, if I die, I can't take money with me. So I believe helping people, that it can't be just about Abel Davila and Diana Davila and my family. That if I can help another kid, help another adult, figure out how to get their kids into education, figure out how to get ahead, figure out that education is probably the only way that you can get to the middle income society. And when you start thinking, then you start becoming involved, becoming part of the American system, then you become something. And as a group, if we can all do it together, we don't have to worry about, why is the guy on the right making more money than me or the guy on the left? No, if we're all in there together and all fighting for the same cause, then we can make things happen.
So how long were you a board member?
I was a board member for 7 years. Having been a school teacher, I saw a lot of the things that I thought were inequities. And here I was with a 1-year-old. I'm thinking, do I wait until he gets to school, or do I start doing something about it now? And I was very fortunate to have the support of my husband that said, if you want to do something, do it. You want to run for office.
So you had a little one, a 1-year-old, and you were pregnant.
Yes.
Yes.
Holy cow.
So yes. So
That's some
busy.
work.
But you know,
And running for office.
Yeah.
that's
and
right.
running for
And
office.
Abel was already in office. So it was one of those hard conversations because I told Abel, you know what, I'm going to have to leave my teaching job. While not a lot, it was a salary.
It was an income. It was a
an
lot.
income. Yes. And so I tell you, well, here I am going to leave my job. And guess what? We have to hire a babysitter because we're both campaigning now. We're both out there day and night knocking on doors and everything. And so, of course, Abel was very supportive. And he's like, if you want to do this and, you know, you really feel like you're going to make a difference and you really got it in you to do it, do it. And so, you know, I decided to launch ourselves and we did it. And we were very fortunate to have won. But I think it stems back to when you live in this community, you see it, you breathe it, and you just can't help but do something about it. You know, it's like, how can you just sit back? And I tell people, I'm not the exception to the rule. Everybody can do it. Everyone should have the opportunity to do it. There should be no excuse why you're not finishing school, you're not getting a college degree, and that was always our motto. You know, with Abel being on HEC, I'm thinking, how can we make this connection between HEC and HISD? How do we stop hearing students say, I didn't go to college because I couldn't afford it. I didn't go to college because I was afraid. I didn't go to college because I didn't know how to fill out that application. I didn't go to college for whatever reason. I'm like, we have to stop making excuses, and how can we do that? And so I'm glad we were both there at the same time because we were very successful in pushing dual credit, and we were very successful in building and pushing the early colleges, which are very successful. That's right. And then the
It's
Felix.
right down the street, second word, the Felix Frauga campus
That's
that
right.
we fought for a good 10 years while even people in our own community were fighting us on the actual building, even leaders in our own community. And they were more concerned, I think people were more concerned about, are we doing it for the limelight? Are we doing it to run for higher office? And our whole goal was never that. Our whole goal was always build something because we didn't want those excuses. We said, if you bring education, it's like the field of dreams. You build it, they will come. Well, that's our belief. If you build it, they will come. And there's no need for you not to let people have an opportunity. They need to have choices.
Who could you attribute to being someone who, you know, as someone who just got elected on HISD board or HCC board, who would you attribute to that person that kind of took you under your wing and said, you know, let me show you the ropes? Or did you have any of that, or were you just kind of thrown to the wolves, baptism by fire type
Well,
deal?
I was very fortunate to have been married to someone that already was an elected official in Houston Community College. So, you know, I could come home to him and tell him, okay, this is my agenda book. Granted, ours was like 100 pages long or something.
Big.
And I tell you, when I was first running for office, he said, don't worry about it. It's only 2 or 3 meetings. You're going to go for hearings and you're going to go for board meeting, agenda review. That's it, 3 meetings. Well, it turned out to be meetings every Thursday.
Every 2 a week, or 3 a
Well,
week.
a whole lot more than I thought. But, you know, I give my husband the credit for that because I was able to come home to him and ask him the questions. And he was available 24 hours, 7 days a week. When I first was elected, too, I have to give credit to Kevin Hoffman. You know, he was the board chair. And he was there with me throughout, you know, Deanna, we're going to help you get through this. If you have any questions, you know, he was there at a lot of the school closures holding my hand because here I was, like I said, pregnant or had just given birth to a child. And so, you know, I have to give him some credit too.
That reminds me, so you quit teaching to become a board member.
I did.
So did you go back to teach somewhere else? Or?
No.
Oh, so you stayed home?
I stopped teaching. Being a trustee at HISD is
Work.
40 plus hours a week of volunteer work. It really is. If you want to make a difference, then you have to devote yourself to it. If you want to just sit there and hold the title and hold a seat, then yeah, I could have worked part-time somewhere else. I could have been a teacher somewhere else or done something part-time. But I didn't see, it was just, the need was so great that I just couldn't find myself doing anything else.
Well, I will tell you that hats off to you for even attempting to run when you're pregnant and have a 1-year-old at home, because you know I have a little one and I know that little munchkin keeps my time busy. Yeah, and I know it's a lot of work for 2 and then running for office and becoming an elected official. So my hats off to you.
Thank you.
I know Abel didn't have anything to do with it.
Nope, it was all her. She's a great woman, and she's a smart woman, and and Diana deserves a lot more than just being a board of trustee. She's a good leader. She brought her district up from being the last in education to being the first in commitment. When it was the bond issue, she was first or second,
Second.
and the amount of money that came to the district. If you saw her district before and after, it's almost like seeing an old house being remodeled. And the spirit, not only in the physical, but also in the spiritual, where people were getting educated and enlightened about what the possibilities were. So Diana,
So-
you're right. It's all her.
So you all overlapped as far as terms that you all served. So the whole 7 years, were both of y'all in the office at the same time?
Yep.
Yes.
We were.
Okay, 7 years?
And if you can see a great example, just go down the street on Milby and Canal and Navigation. You'll see a beautiful 2 buildings, one HISD, Ninel Castillo building, and the Felix Fraga building.
That's right.
And that's an honor to 2 great men in the city of Houston.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And you know what? I'm glad that it was named after Mr. Felix Fraga while he was still alive.
Yep.
Or Leonel Castillo.
And
It's
also
good,
Leonel
yeah.
Castillo.
Leonel was alive when it.
Yes.
They both were alive.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we lost Leonel Castillo, our former INS director for under President
City
Carter.
Controller.
And city controller, that's correct. Now, I will tell you that there's a lot of respect in this community for Mr. Felix Fraga. So it was also good to see his name on that building.
It was. It was actually when we had the ribbon cutting for the HISD. We did it coincide, didn't we? It was HISD and HEC. We did the East Early College, which was the Leonel Castillo building, and then we were doing the Felix
Felix Fraga.
Fraga ribbon cutting ceremony also. And it was beautiful to see both leaders there at the event.
And 1,000 people there, which was good.
That's great. Now, let's talk about some of the problems that you all had. I know that it's not always easy, especially when you're the board chair. You have to deal with people like Wayne Dosofino back in the day.
Yes.
Hounding you, but there were some critical issues that you all had to address while you were chairs. Okay, so why don't we talk about? We're going to take a little break right now, and when we come back, I want you to think about some of those issues, and we'll discuss them in more detail. So we'll be back in 2 minutes. Welcome back to Latino Talk TV. We're in the Houston Media Source, Houston East End Live TV. So if you have a question and you want to ask our guests, you feel free to do so. Believe me, we'll take your call. So let's talk about the issues that you faced as HISD board chair and HCC board chair. Let's start with you, Diane.
I think one of my biggest issues when I was there is school closures. You know, they're not fun. They're not pleasant. Everyone knows that when you close a school, you're pretty much giving up on a community. It was very unfortunate, as I stated before, 3 months into my beginning of my term, I get an agenda and I've got like 8 schools that are going to be closed. And granted, here I hadn't given birth to my child, and so here I was learning the whole process of school closures, going to these town hall meetings, and several of them got closed because of low enrollment. I mean, everyone kept saying the proof is in the pudding. We went through the agenda, And they weren't pleasant at all. And it happened again 4 years after that. School closures again hit my district, and it was going to be six schools this time around. And this time I was like, no, we're not doing this again. We're not doing it. I saw what happened when we closed schools when I first got here. I said, y'all did it to me once. Shame on y'all, the school board members and the superintendent that was there, but you're not going to do it to my community twice. I said, we're going to do what we can to salvage these schools and make them work. And I think one of the greatest success stories that we can say, Wharton Elementary is a school that's in my district, Rusk Elementary, which was converted into an elementary middle school. I mean, we have to be creative, and I think that's what we were lacking at HISD, the creativity. It's easier, of course, to say, oh, just shut it down and get it over with and just move on and it's over, but it's not. They don't realize the damage that they're doing in these neighborhoods when that happens. People start moving away because they want to be near a school, and we see it here in our neighborhoods, how people are starting to move away. The neighborhoods that you closed, I mean, that was the center of their community. You go and you drop off children and you see your neighbors there, you have a conversation, you find out what's going on in the day. So those I think were my hardest ones. Those are the ones that would keep me up at night. And those were the hard decisions. And standing up to my colleagues, standing up to the superintendent and telling him, you put that on the agenda and I'm going to be on the other side with my community because we're not doing this to my community again.
So at the end of the day, how many were actually closed? Now, I'm not talking about just your district. I'm talking about
At the end of the day, citywide, I think we've closed close to 100 schools in the last 10 years. Yes.
It's a big number.
It is a very big number. I mean, because HIC used to be 320 or 40 something, and I think now they're down to 200, and I think it's half, 250.
Everybody moved out to the suburbs, or what happened?
No, I mean, what happened is everybody just got rerouted. If Anson Jones was one of the schools that was closed, and so children were district zoned to Rusk and zoned to Bruce. So no, I mean, we had HISD was going through a hard time at one point where we did lose enrollment. We went from 210,000 students to 200,000 students, and then to 195,000 students. So we were losing students at a huge number. And you're right, a lot of people were moving out. That all of a sudden the secret was out. You can actually go out and buy a 2,000 square foot home for half the price here in Houston. But then the movement came back. People started realizing, oh my God, that 1 hour drive is just not cutting it anymore. And so people were starting to drive back in. And then one of the most creative things that could have happened is HISD, Dr. Saveda brought this agenda item forward and said, even if you don't live in the district, but you commute into the district every single morning, we're going to allow you to bring your child tuition free. And you don't have to pay out of district fee. Now, that didn't mean you can get into the HSPVAs and the River Oaks of HISD. That was going to be giving priority to the citizens that lived here in the city of Houston. That's still the priority. But when that came in, we all of a sudden saw growth in the district, and so we saw that we didn't need to be closing that many schools anymore.
So Diana, can you break down exactly on a per student basis? You talk about enrollment and that being a reason why schools get shut down. Is there a financial figure that you can estimate with HISD or with just public schools in general, what that cost per student is? Everyone talks about it. Go to school at least for the half day so you can get your credit. I mean, how much money per student would you say that's attributed to?
Well, a lot of the people say, you're right. What they don't realize is HISD is funded a little different. HISD is, you take the attendance the first day, and then you take and after that, there's a cutoff date in October. And so whatever amount of students you have between September and October, that's how they fund the school. So people say, well, if you don't come this day in November, we don't get funding for that one child. Well, the funding's already been allocated for the school that way. Now, that's a good thing and a bad thing, because if you're a school that started with 427 students, and then all of a sudden the apartment complex opens up, and all of a sudden you got 500-600 students come in, well, that's a hit, because all of a sudden you've got this huge need for funding. And so that can hurt you also. When you're a Title I school, which is a school that's socially economically disadvantaged, you have all sorts of issues with children walking in, whether it's a learning disability, whether it's something personal happening in their lives. And so additional funding is given for those students also. But, is it enough? I don't really know if it's ever enough with the amount of money that's being given.
The other issue there too with HISD is that the state hasn't corrected the Robin Hood. HISD doesn't get all that money. That's our tax-based money. If we would have our tax-based money and be able to keep our tax-based money instead of it going to other district, then we wouldn't have to close down that many schools. And so that's another issue that Diana pushed real hard when she was on the board to try to figure out the equitable funding. And so when you don't have equitable funding, and you might have $1 billion worth of tax money, but if half of it goes to other cities and it doesn't stay in Houston, that's the issue that the parents need to fight. Call their state reps and tell them fix this problem and keep our money in Houston.
So obviously you leaned on his experience as a board member, and you always bounced ideas off of him. How influential was Abel in your decisions?
I wouldn't say he was maybe 15. I'm not gonna.
I'm not that important.
I lean towards my husband for support and guidance. And so he would give, this is what I would do, and he'd give me different scenarios and what would you think. So we bounce around different ideas. But at the end of the day, I knew I was going to be held accountable. And so whatever decision I made, I had to make sure that I could be held accountable for it, and I strongly believed that that was the right decision for my community. So while I would go to him for advice, at the end of the day, I was a decision maker. I'm the one that made a decision.
Well, I'll tell you, the overlapping of your districts, was there a lot of precincts that overlapped?
I think the majority, except for 2.
Oh, is that
Except
many?
for 2.
Wow. So
Except
you
2
guys
people.
pretty much ran for the same district.
We sure did. We
And
all
that was
ran for the
a big advantage, obviously, with the same last name, get to promote. Did you all actually share any kind of literature or?
No, we
No.
never did that. We
No?
never, I don't
No,
think we
because
ever-
Abel
Well,
was
actually,
every 6
I don't know. I think
years.
because I only ran twice.
Yes.
She had to run every 4 years.
What were the terms on HISD board?
HISD is 4. He's 6.
Yeah, so you get there, you stay 6 years.
Got it.
Okay.
So Abel hadn't campaigned in
I think
4
the only
years
thing we
before
did
that.
together was probably maybe a Christmas card together or the holiday cards.
Yes, because we
Okay.
did a family card. Yes, when you did we did do those together.
Okay. Well, actually, anything would help.
Yeah, anything could
Save money.
That's right.
Joining resources from
Yeah.
your campaigns, et cetera, et cetera. Now, Abel, let's talk about some of the issues that you addressed as HEC chair. What was the toughest issue?
I think going back to Diana, I think because of the limited funding, HCC is not funded like HISD. I mean, HISD is $1 billion budget. We're like, at that time when I was there, ours is like 175 million.
So what's the difference? How do they fund you differently than the HISD?
Well, we get funded by 3 sources. We get state funding, we get tuition, and then tax base. And our tax base wasn't that high. I think our tax base is only like 11 cents or something like that compared to the ISDs that are real high. I mean, they have $1 billion budget. We only had maybe not even 10% of what she had. And so the funding was a big issue, and convincing people at that time that it was okay to build in the minority communities. At that time when I got elected, there was a lot of older people, even older than my age now. I was elected at 25, and so most of the people that were elected were 65 and beyond, and all white conservative business people. And their philosophy was don't build in the minority communities, build out in the outskirts where you're going to have quick influx of population.
You know what? That's interesting that you say that, because when I was going to HCC, the high schools were HCCs.
That's right.
And that's why we wouldn't build buildings in the inner
Yeah.
city.
So I went to Milby, Milby Nighttime College,
school, yeah.
HCC.
Yep.
That was before Southeast was
Before
built.
it was built.
And actually, I was very glad to see HCC build in that side of town. And I actually used to teach there at HCC Southeast. So I saw that more people took pride in their school because they had their own facilities. When I was at Milby campus, you went there at night. You didn't go there during the day because it was a high school.
Yep.
So you were on your own during the day. And when Southeast came on board, you had somewhere to study, you could hang out with friends or do whatever you had to do during the
It
day.
was a real college experience.
Yes,
Yep.
exactly,
Yes.
exactly. So I commend your efforts and whatever you had to do with that and making that happen. Now, I will also tell you that you look at the other campuses, and even though Southeast had their own building, I didn't feel like we were up to par. I was looking at Central, and they had all kinds of programs and
Gym
theater
and-
and
yep,
gym,
dance and
then
everything.
you go to HCC Southeast, and
One
it was just it was like a lonely building. There was nothing around there. It's grown since then, and there's been some great movement by Dr. Irene Porcarello. As you know, you had a lot to do with her moving up the food chain over there at HCC. And by the way, Irene Porcarello started off as a dean at HCC, and she just kind of steadily
slowly.
moved up. Now she's the president in Southeast, so hats off to her.
Yep.
So let's talk about some other issues that have happened during your tenure, if you will, at HEC that really you want to highlight.
I mean, you want me? I'd rather focus on the positive or the. I mean, I think the biggest positive issue that I would like to talk about would be the dual credit. The dual credit was a thing that was happening. The early college dual credit was happening at the Southwest area, and we were at a board meeting and we're sitting there, and so they bring up an agenda item to the board table, and we didn't know anything about it. They just brought it up, and so they said, "Oh, we have all these kids going from high school to college for free," and I'm like, "College for free?" I said, I never heard of college for free, but let me see this. And then where are the students from? Well, they were all Anglo, which it's okay. The program started over there. And I was like, well, why isn't it at Southeast? We're poor. We don't have the money. And so why aren't we getting free education? Well, it became a battle. Well, we can't afford for y'all to have it. Well, we could afford to give it to the affluent people, but we can't afford to give it to the people that don't have money. So that was a big battle. But
That doesn't even make any sense.
Yeah, I hear you.
and so that became a big issue. And so what we ended up doing for 10 years, pounding on the issue, pounding and pounding. We're going to have an early college. We ended up going to California,
New York.
New York first, and then California, where they had the high-tech high, which is a phenomenal
looking
school.
at best practices.
Yeah, best practice. But not only the school was phenomenal. The kids over there were building like robotics with. I mean, they were doing submarines, inventing cars, and some people were buying their patents. And they were just in high school, but they were getting college
They
credit
were
in high school.
Their science
Compared to
competitions
Innovation first?
Yeah.
The
No,
robotics
it's
competition?
just,
or?
well, it was just the.
It's called high-tech high.
It's called high-tech, but they compete against UCLA,
against
Berkeley.
universities.
Yeah, they don't do high school to high school science projects. They
Wow.
do high school to university
Wow.
competitions.
And so we decided when Diana got on the board, I was so excited because I told her, look, we can really make this happen for the community, and it could be a big thing. And so we ended up creating a dual credit with a college degree. So now these kids, before they even graduate from high school, they get an associate's degree. So they get their associate's degree first, then they get their high school degree. Well, it took us a long time, but it's one of those things that we wanted to accomplish because we
How's
knew.
that possible? You get a college degree before you get a grade.
Juniors and seniors.
You-
are
Yeah,
offered
you
to
get your,
both.
Both. It's offered to
diploma.
some.
Well,
it's actually
it's a
freshman year.
It's freshman year. It's
freshman
actually a specific school just for those students that actually are on the
Yes.
same
Only the
campus.
early colleges
Only the
can
early
do that.
college. And so you actually get your diploma from college. And you look at it. It's 2 years of free tuition. It's from there you can go to A&M, you can go to UT, wherever you want to go, U of H, TSU, any school. Even Harvard, we have a lot of these students that go to Ivy League universities after they finish there. Because
Is
it's an
it
advanced.
possible to graduate in 3 years from your high school and move on to the college level, skipping 1 year basically of senior high school?
You probably could do that if you wanted to, but works to me. This is a better advantage because what you can do is before you graduate your 4 years, you have your 2 years of free tuition. If you graduate then go to college, you're gonna have to pay tuition. If I was a parent, I would encourage my son or daughter stay in that program, finish your 2 years, because even if you graduate with an associate's degree, let's say in nursing, let's say in some kind of field, high-tech field, let's say pharmacy tech. You're going to come out with a job already, even before you even start college. You can come out with a job, $65,000 a year, $35,000, $45,000, and still have an opportunity to go to college and get your bachelor's degree, your master's degree.
Not only that, I think in a student's perspective standpoint, you're in a smaller classroom. You're getting college level instruction, and I know for me when I went to UT, you're in a room full of 1,000 students because it's one of those weed out courses. So that definitely is a benefit to have that dual course credit. I never did it myself. I had some classmates that did, and they went on ahead and had that associates right after they graduated high school.
And I tell you, the biggest hiccup I think we had was convincing some of our colleagues on the board, saying that these programs were just as credible as if you were going to U of H or you were going to St. Thomas University or you were going to A&M or UT. I said, these are college professors, a lot of them from Harvard and from a lot of other Ivy League universities teaching our high school students. So I think that was our hiccup, where sometimes some of our own colleagues didn't want to support these early colleges because they were like, no, these are sugar-coated, it's HEC, it's a community college. But, the proof is in the pudding when you start seeing these students graduate and they're
the
getting
results.
accepted all over this country.
So there's still hope. Oh, we got a caller. I see my producer over here. There's a caller on the line. Caller, how can we help you today?
Hello,
We can hear you. What was your question, sir?
how you doing?
I'm doing great.
Great job on that college in the East End here in Second Ward. But I wanted to tell you that a lot of these schools are probably losing a lot of kids because we're getting a lot of kids going to KIPP and they're going to YES. And those two schools are never mentioned really by our community, but they're doing a great job. And actually, the guy that started those schools was right here at Edison Jones. And we started over there at Guadalupe Plaza. And at this time, they're really growing and they're educating a lot of kids. And a lot of these kids are really being accepted in colleges. So mention those people too because they're doing a great job up to now. So I hope they continue.
What was your name, sir?
HISD is still is doing a good job too, trying to get them. But we're losing a lot of kids. We're losing a lot of schools in the neighborhood. So those are some of the things that.
What was your name, sir?
Sir?
Your name?
I said, can you hear me?
Yes, what's your name?
I'm Paul, man. Paul Massa.
Oh, Paul.
How you doing, Paul?
Great. We know you. Paul, I appreciate your call. We have a few minutes to answer his questions. Do you want to take that?
I think charter schools are a great example of what things could happen. But if you compare charter schools with ISDs, I think they're comparable. Paul's right. Project Yes, we actually helped them here when they started off at Rusk. And what's his name? Bebick? What's his name?
Chris Barbic.
Chris Barbic. Yeah, he
Is that
actually
Yes Prep?
Yeah,
Yes.
he actually came to Felix's office when he started, and we actually helped him get going. I believe competition is good, whether it's business, whether it's ISDs, whether it's public, whether it's private. It's always good to create a business component because we should always strive to be the best. We should always strive to achieve more for our kids. When we sugarcoat and level down our curriculum or try to say it's okay just to be ready for task testing, I don't think it's a great idea. We need to start telling our kids, hey, we need to get ready for Harvard testing. We need to get ready for our SATs. You need to score the highest in those tests, be commended, not just average. I think we have so many opportunities now through education that all our students are capable.
Expectations
Should
have
be
to up
higher.
here. That's correct.
See, I always tell people, just like a quinceañera where everybody finds all this money, the college diploma needs to be the first thing that's up there on the wall.
It's amazing how many padrinos you can get for when it comes to paying college. Where they at? I want to thank Mr. Chris for being our host today, and of course our guests for
Thank
coming
you.
out
Thank
today.
you.
Thank you for
can
having
join us anytime, especially when it gets heated. The governor's race, we want to talk some more.
Okay, that'd be
It's about
great. Thank you.
politics, yes.
Yeah. So we'll be back next week. We're live TV every Monday night. Oh, Jordan, I forgot to ask our producer. Are we off next week? I guess not. We are off next week. We have a holiday next week. So the following Monday, we'll see you. Thank you all for joining us. We'll see you in 2 weeks.